At the beginning of this, I thought I could document some material to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. In Krsko, there was nobody I could find that was even remotely involved with spaceflight, never mind the Apollo missions. So I decided I would do it myself. It is rocket science. Fuck, broke it. Oh no, fuck, it's got wrong. Let's keep it rolling. Just keep it rolling. Yeah. We'll do it again.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it. And the moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
The first crewed lunar landing. Apollo 11 was just one part of a big plan by the USA to win the space race. 11 was crossing the finish line. They won, but we didn't really pay attention to the preparation for this race, or the process after. We like winners. We don't like watching losers. And sometimes the USA were losers.
This is unheralded in the history of the space program. Ladies and gentlemen, I have covered the space shuttle launches since the very first launch, since before.
Report. The Space Shuttle Challenger, apparently moments after takeoff in a hard freeze from Florida, something went wrong. The vehicle reportedly has exploded. Now what we're going to do is show you the launch of the space shuttle this morning.
Throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Nothing like this has ever happened. Of course, there was the Apollo fire on the ground at the Kennedy Space Center. The Apollo 1 fire that killed 3 astronauts during a test run back in the 60s. But the shuttle program itself, to this time, has been untouched by any human problem.
Apollo 1 failed. During pre-flight testing, a fire broke out in the space capsule with 3 astronauts inside: Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. This is the audio transcript of those moments.
Hey, how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 3 buildings? I can't hear a thing you're saying. Jesus Christ. Again? And how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings? Hey! Oh, it's got a fire in the coal strip.
The mission was renamed Apollo 1 after the tragedy. I was lost. But that's good.
And I saw this footage. It's dated by an atomic clock 3 days into the flight. All the astronauts are identified, and they're there putting the transparency over the window. They're clearly pretending to be halfway to the moon when they're not halfway to the moon.
That is bullshit. I don't care what you say. I went to the moon and back, and everyone that's a scientist knows it. Now, if you want to not believe it, it's okay, you know? It's okay. It's a better story. It just happens to be a lie, that's all.
Would you swear to on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
Traversing the lunar surface with Conrad, Alan Bean, his first space flight. Born in Wheeler, Texas, Bean was a Navy test pilot for several years before joining NASA. In addition to inspecting and removing pieces of the Surveyor for return to Earth, the pair collected about 90 pounds of lunar samples. They also set up 6 scientific experiments, which, among other things, will record moonquakes, measure the lunar atmosphere, and analyze the solar wind. En route back from the moon, the 3 astronauts witnessed and photographed for the first time an eclipse of the sun by the Earth. The splashdown of Apollo 12 was almost as precise as their moon landing. The Yankee Clipper landed 3½ miles from the carrier Hornet.
Well, what
That
about
isn't treason.
under penalty of eternal damnation?
Under penalty of eternal damnation.
And under penalty of treason.
Treason is when you sell out your country.
Well, if you used $135 billion to not go to the moon.
That's still not treason. Treason is if you tell secrets to another thing. I've said enough. Now, you can use that and say, well, you didn't say something else.
No.
I know how people are. It's okay.
Well,
take your stuff and get the fuck out.
You really like attention, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Now, with so much confusion in the public eye, hatred that can be fulfilled with the scientific knowledge we gain every day, a closed perception. If even when we try to do the best for humanity, we still lose people, what should we do? We are planetary citizens. So, to end, I'll leave you with the words of John F. Kennedy.
For we meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction, but with instruments of knowledge and understanding. For space science, like nuclear science and all technology, has no conscience of its own. Whether it will become a force for good or ill depends on man. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made in extending his writ around this globe of ours.